AMP's year-long siege of its rival wealth manager, AXA Asia Pacific, had a predictable denouement this week when AXA's board agreed to terms in a $15 billion surrender. Having already beaten off the NAB with the help of the ACCC and got AXA's French parent back as an ally, AMP can push ahead with its ambitious growth plans. But can AMP really become a fifth pillar in financial services, or will it just be another stump trying to compete against the power of Westpac and Commonwealth? Neil Woolrich reports.
It was the life insurance version of State of Origin, Sydney's AMP versus the Melbourne-based National Mutual. The Victorian firm tried to muscle up against AMP in the 1980s, then almost went broke after the 87 stock market crash, before eventually being bailed out and renamed by France's AXA. But after a long and often fierce rivalry, the two firms now look set to join forces.
Over 100 years they have battled it out in the life insurance area, so for them now to be together, I would think that it will be quite an interesting cultural experience for the now AXA employees as they become AMP employees.
This week, AMP came back with a revised $4.2 billion cash and share offer for AXA's Australian business, allowing AXA to offload its Asian operations to its French parent. AXA's Australian board has given the offer its blessing, which would create the biggest single player in Australia's $1.3 trillion wealth management industry. AMP's chief executive, Craig Dunn, says the merged entity could create a genuine fifth pillar in financial services, but others are more sceptical.
No, not in broad financial services, because financial services includes banking, and to be polite, AMP has a modest banking operation. Of course, they'll be a major force in wealth management. They'll be number one in just about every area you want to think about in wealth management.
It's definitely a fifth pillar in the sense of wealth management. Obviously, from a banking perspective, there's an enormous amount of work to be done if indeed they head down that path over the years. But from a wealth management perspective, most certainly they will be a dominant player along with the other four banks.
The big banks are no doubt watching developments but are not exactly shaking in their boots.
Well, I've always been worried about competitive threats, and AMP's been an organisation that I've always admired, and they've done a very good job over the years. And having obviously overcome the difficulties they had at a decade ago, they're a very strong and very competent competitor.
There's no doubt in my mind that an AMP-AXA tie-up will promote greater competition, for the simple reason that AXA is very strong on the wealth management side. And that's certainly what the banks are getting into. It's very important for banks to have that wealth management business, and that will be something very good for our AMP to have.
Earlier this year, the ACCC blocked the National Australia Bank's bid to buy AXA's Australian business.
Welcome to AXA North.
The competition regulator's main concern was the NAB and its powerful wealth management arm, MLC, seizing control of AXA's innovative North platform, a program which links financial advisors and their clients, helping to manage their investments. While AMP lacks its own wrap platform, banking and insurance analyst Brett Lemessurier is not convinced that AXA's North service will make a big difference to AMP's prospects.
It still doesn't appear that the North platform is doing particularly well. It's got some inflows, but they're not outstanding, and it's not obvious that AMP will have the North platform as a major centrepiece of its retail strategy. In fact, it may continue to be peripheral, as effectively it is for AXA at the moment.
And although the AXA takeover would give AMP greater size and its own wrap platform, the takeover is only forecast to deliver $380 million a year in earnings on an investment of just under $4 billion.
In other words, it's a return on equity of about 10%, which makes the deal line ball for shareholders on the basis that all the benefits that AMP has identified are realised. And of course there are risks associated with achieving those. So on balance, you would say AMP shareholders need to be a little bit hopeful to think that they'll end up square out of this.
Associate Professor Frank Zumbo says the ACCC's ruling on AXA means the major banks will now have to grow their operations organically rather than by big takeovers.
There's no doubt that the ACCC stopping NAB from taking AXA is a very symbolic step by the ACCC. Clearly the ACCC is drawing a line in the sand that they will carefully scrutinise any acquisition by the four major banks in future.
However, AXA and AMP's dominance in wealth management is by no means assured over the longer term. The major banks have made their intentions clear over several years. They want a much bigger slice of the trillion-dollar wealth management pie, and they'll continue to chase it aggressively through their ready-made customer bases and branch networks.
AMP and AXA have got some very well-known brands and some very good distribution channels, so I'm not seeing that it's going to be a huge issue in that sense. I mean, they collectively will have just under 3,000 advisors that don't necessarily have bank branches to deal out of, but they've got plenty of great relationships out there that I'm sure will work fine for them.
It's now up to AXA's shareholders to decide whether the deal goes ahead. But Wayne Swan could also have a say in the matter. And in the new political paradigm, it's by no means certain that Canberra will readily accept an Australian company selling off a growing Asian operation to the French.